My next guest only needed 38 seconds to get it done this past weekend at Cage Warriors 132, getting that first round finish over Carlos Abreau. It is the champ, Dominique Wooding, back here on the program. Dom, how are you, man?
I'm all good. I'm all good, thanks, man.
Good to hear. We talked about this pre-fight, about you making a statement. You certainly went out there and did this. Before we talk about the actual matchup, what's been the feedback like since the win? Because I saw that going all over social media after the finish.
Yeah, it still is. The feedback is still going on. Even my phone's still blowing up right now. I'm just getting a lot of friends, family, supporters messaging me. Oh, are you gonna get the contract? Are you gonna get the UFC contract? Are you gonna get the UFC contract? And I'm just like, I don't know. I've not heard anything yet. So
Yeah.
my management's working on it. Um, so just hoping and praying that I get a contract. And it's like the way I finished that last fight. It can't be denied, man. It can't be denied.
You literally predicted this. I mean, we talked about this in sort of the lead up to it. Maybe not that quickly, but I mean, could you have scripted this any better? Like it literally, 38 seconds. I think your pro debut, you had a quicker finish, but not by much. I mean, I think it was 35 seconds. This was
Yeah,
38.
yeah, that last fight, that was my second quickest finish, to be honest. Honestly speaking, going into that fight, I didn't expect to finish him that quick. I thought it was gonna maybe be towards the end of the first round, beginning of the second round. Um, but obviously got the job done and did it in fantastic fashion. And I put him in his place and decimated him.
Now, was the mentality any different going into this fight, knowing what was at stake? We talked about this going in, right? You get the win here. UFC London's a few months after. There's a lot on the line here. I know every fight's important, and you don't want to lose, but was that in the back of your mind going into this fight?
What UFC?
Yeah, just knowing that, if you had to kind of get an impressive win here, I mean, it sort of,
Yeah,
makes everything a lot easier to get signed to the UFC, right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. Obviously, it's in your mind, but obviously, you gotta try to just put in the back of your mind and just obviously focus at the task at hand. Um, but yeah, it's definitely there in your mind, and obviously, I've done what I had to do, and I'm just now it's just kind of like a waiting game. Like, to be honest, in an ideal world, I would love to make my UFC debut on the UFC London card in March, but also caterers, they have another event one day before the UFC London card. So um, either way, I'll be getting ready for March anyway, whether it's caterers or UFC. But just the way how things has gone and the way I've planned stuff in my head, I've done everything that I've planned in my head, and it's only right for me to get this contract now. To be honest, you know what I mean, like I've put in the work, I've done everything that I've needed to do for me to be able to get a UFC contract now. And you got to realize this. My year started in June. I signed for Cage Warriors in April. I had my um, first fight for Cage Warriors in June, and obviously my last fight with Cage Warriors was obviously this month, December. So within a 6 month period, look what I've done.
Yeah.
No one, I've not, I've not, I've not seen no one in the UK MMA scene do that kind of thing. Like within a 6 month period, have your debut fight, fight for a title, then defend it all within 6 months. You don't really hear that much within MMA. Do you know what I mean? So
No.
especially like in the region, like in a regional circuit kind of thing. I mean, even in the UFC, to be honest, the only active guy I've seen
Well, Hamzat,
as
I
of
mean, that was back, that was last year, but yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. Like, it's very rare to do what you've done,
yeah, like
especially, in
the
such a short period
only
of time.
exactly the only guy I've seen as of late do that and have mad activity is Israel Adesanya. When he
Mhm.
came into the UFC, then he boosted himself all the way up to a title shot, and how much fights he was having, and then merging onto a title shot. I feel like I'm kind of doing that same thing, but the thing is, I'm doing it at a shorter time. But obviously, he had more fights than me
Right.
within the time that he was there. So obviously, 6 months. Within 6 months, I've had two world title fights, and
Yeah.
within those two world title fights, I've had one defense. So that's a big statement in itself. Do you know what I mean? So I'm
Yeah.
within like the past year or the yeah within like the past year, I've not heard or seen anyone do anything like that. especially within the UK MMA scene.
Well, take me back to June, like going to Cage Warriors. Like, did you imagine this was all going to happen? Like, was this always part of the plan, you achieving all this, or did you even surprise yourself with what you've been able to achieve this year?
Nah, I didn't surprise myself. I expected all of this, to be honest. If you go and watch
Okay.
if you go and watch previous interviews I've done, even you can go look at my Twitter right now. I literally just posted something a few hours ago of a previous interview that I did after my Cage Warriors debut, and I said what I was gonna do. You can go on my Twitter. You can go on my Twitter and look at that video right now if you want. So
Mhm.
I said what I was gonna do. I said I was gonna come in, knock these guys out, not these guys out like bowling pins, take the belt, and then dip out. And with me dipping out, that's me getting my UFC contract. So I'm at the stage now where I'm waiting for the UFC contract kind of thing. Do you get what I'm saying? So the way
Yeah.
I saw it in my head and the way I planned it out, I've done everything accordingly.
No,
And
exactly. You've held
and
up
the
your end
thing
of the
is,
bargain.
and exactly, and the thing is, all my fights have been devastating finishes, all statements. It's not no TKOs, none of that. Straight KOs. I've been putting all these last three guys. I put them all out of their misery. So that's a statement in itself.
What was the best compliment you got after the fight? I know you got a lot of feedback. I'm sure you're still checking through the phone like you just told me here, but was there like a particular message or maybe a few messages that stood out, kind of giving you props for the big win?
To be honest, a lot of people, even like right now, like just a lot of people just. It's more so like just people saying to me like, "Oh, that was a great win. You look good and this and that, and you definitely deserve a UFC contract now. If UFC don't come, like one guy, like I got a message saying like, oh, if UFC don't come and sign, we're gonna start a riot or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So it's just messages like that. Do you know what I mean? Just supporters, obviously friends, family, and yeah. So it's just kind of like a waiting game now in terms of like if the UFC is gonna come knocking, it's basically a waiting game right now. So obviously, it seems like my management's uh dealing with the matchmaker like Sean Shelby, and just waiting to hear back from him. So yeah, just the way how this whole year's went and the way I've finished all of these fights and what I've set myself out to do, it's deserving of a title shot. I mean, not title shot. Sorry, it's
UFC
deserving of
contract, yeah.
of a UFC contract. Do you know what I mean? So, and the thing is, my whole work just speaks for itself. To be honest, do you know what I mean, I don't even need to speak for myself. A lot of people are speaking for me right now on social media, so it's there.
Well, and you mentioned the Cage Warriors has a show anyway. So let's say for some reason, let's knock on wood that this doesn't happen. But let's say you have to go fight for Cage Warriors. At least you're getting ready for a fight at that time. So if there is a short notice opportunity, worst case scenario, you're going to be ready to go because you're already preparing for a fight around that time.
Yeah, 100%. I'm preparing for March. Obviously after Christmas, I'll be preparing for March. I'm back in the gym next week anyway. Next week Monday, so um, I'll be back in the gym preparing for March. So whether it's UFC or Cage Warriors, it is what it is. It is what it is. But obviously, the way I feel like this UFC contract needs to come next. So
It's got to come before Christmas, right? That would just make Christmas that much
oh,
better. Am I right?
that'll be a great Christmas present to know that I'll be fighting my first fight in 2022 will be in the UFC.
There you
So
go.
it's kind of like anticipation, just waiting to hear news, whether it's good news or bad news. You get what I'm saying? So
Yeah. You
yeah. So
mentioned going
obviously, I haven't.
back. Sorry, go
Go
ahead.
go go go. No, go.
Oh, I was just going to say, you mentioned how you wanted to get back into camp. Is there going to be like, let's assume that, well, you're going to fight in March regardless, right? Is there anything different for this camp this time around? Are you keeping things how they are? Because you've been winning, so you might as well. I mean, there's the theory, don't try and break it if it's not broken, or don't try and fix it if
Yeah.
it's not broken. Are you going to just keep things how they are, or do you plan to do any cross training? What are sort of the plans for your camp
No,
in 2022?
yeah, definitely just keep things how they are, and obviously just work on stuff that needs to be worked on from the last fight, and just certain things in general within my skill set. So obviously I've got all my coaches there. I've got Ashley Grimshaw, I've got Brad Pickett, I've got my boxing coach Daily Perales, I've got my Muay Thai coaches Phil Chu and Matthew Chill from Team Chu Muay Thai. got my strength and conditioning coaches, Rory Lynn and Sonny Delakia. So obviously, just keeping things how they are, and just obviously work on stuff that needs to be worked on for me in order for me to get better and come back better than the last performance.
We can talk about this now because the fight's over with, but let's say you do get signed. You're going into the UFC's bantamweight division. How do you feel like you stack up in that division right now? Because we're talking about one of the deepest divisions in the UFC.
I'll stack up really well. Even like with some of the support I'm getting with supporters trying to vouch for me to get signed. They give I'm just getting a lot of supporters throwing in names like who I should fight for my debut and stuff like that. There's a lot of guys. There's a whole heap of talent within that division. So me being in there just shakes things up a bit, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So obviously, like stylistically, I match up very well against all of these other bantamweights. Do you know what I mean? So, like I said, it's a very deep. Like you said, it's a very deep division, and I'm ready to enter.
Is there one fight that you look at one opponent that you think that's a fun matchup? Not that you're calling anyone out, but is there a style matchup that you look at on that bantamweight roster thinking that would be good for my debut?
To be honest, I ain't really got anyone in mind. To be honest, yeah, I don't really have anyone in mind. To be honest, but
well, let me throw a name out here. I'm just curious about this too. Okay, so you train with Nathaniel Wood, right? You guys have worked together. One of his losses is Casey Kenny. I know Casey's had a few losses. I'm wondering if that's a fight that you'd like to get back for him, down the line. Is that something, or do you think that's would you rather sort of start off fighting maybe a contender series winner or something like that first?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. But the thing is, like someone like Casey Kenny, he's been in the UFC for quite a while now, and he's had some good fights. Obviously, as a debut fight, like some of the names of that's been thrown at me in terms of like in social media with like supporters throwing names, like for example, like some supporter writ on my social media saying, "Oh, I would love to see you make your debut against Sean O'Malley." Let's be real here.
Well,
I'm not gonna have a debut.
Yeah.
Let's be real. I'm not gonna have a debut against someone like Sean O'Malley.
Of course,
it's obviously gonna be someone that's like coming off of like Dana White Contender Series or like an unknown guy that's in the same position as me, if that makes sense.
Right.
If you get what I mean.
Yeah. No, I totally get it.
Yeah, like someone like Casey Kenny. Yeah, that's someone that I'll probably.
I was thinking just someone who might have had history with your gym, even someone that maybe Brad fought. I don't know if there's anyone in the UFC. So
like guys like, for example, like Casey Kenny, Chito Vera. Like these are guys that are kind of like, let's say, I don't know, top 15 guys. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like I'm going to go in and have my debut against a top 15 guy. Do you get what I'm saying?
Well, the reason I mentioned Kenny specifically because I think he's out of the rankings now because he's lost 2 in a row. That's the only reason I thought of him. But that's yeah, he lost to Cruz, and then he lost to Song Yadong in his last fight as well. That's why I brought his name up. Because sometimes the UFC, when you're on a bit of a skid, they like to bring in newcomers against them. So we'll see. But
yeah, that is true. You never know. You never know what could happen. But what I personally think is, if they sign me now, I think they're going to give me someone that's like maybe off of Contender Series or like an unranked guy that not a lot of people know about, if that makes sense, if you get what I'm saying.
100%. Yeah. You look at, here's an example. Paddy, right? He fought Luigi Vendermini in his debut, right? Like, it's not like he's fighting, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even know who he was. Yeah. Until he fought Paddy. Do you get what I'm saying?
Exactly. So, Ian Gary fights Jordan Williams. Same thing. Like you can kind of see a pattern here and totally get that as well. So there we go. Okay. Just last question, because you did mention him. What are your overall thoughts on Sean O'Malley? He's been kind of taking a different approach to his UFC career than other fighters, and he's also done a really good job of marketing himself. Do you like that, or do you look at him and say, hey, you got to fight tougher guys? Like what are your overall impressions of O'Malley? I was just curious.
Listen, as Sean O'Malley as a fighter, I like him as a fighter. Stylistically, I like his style. And what he's doing is very smart. Do you get what I'm saying? Because obviously, like, when it comes to us fighters, we tend to think fight, and we don't think of like the business side of things. Do you know what I mean? So someone like Sean O'Malley, he's very smart. He's not gonna go and fight. Like, for example, you're not gonna want to go and fight someone like, let's just say, for example, like Jose Aldo for 10-10, are you?
No.
You wanna build your money up because that's a freaking tough fight. So what Sean O'Malley's doing, he's being very smart. And even like I saw a previous interview of Kevin Lee. He did an interview with Errol Wani after he got cut by the UFC, and he said one of his advice to younger fighters coming up in the game, trying to get into the UFC, was once you get in the UFC, try and cherry pick as much as you can, because in doing that, you're getting paid like what Sean O'Malley's doing, and he's getting paid, and then keep renewing his contract until it's time to actually start fighting a tougher competition. Like for example, like Sean O'Malley, he can fight the top guys right now if he wants to, but he's going the smart route. Do you get what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I
No, for
understand
sure.
what he's doing. I understand what he's doing from a business standpoint. It's very smart what he's doing, because it's like you got to realize it's very easy to get in the UFC rather than staying there. So I've seen guys and I've trained with guys that have got in the UFC and they've had tough matchups, and then after they get spat back out. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like, for
Well,
example, like
look at Reese McKee, right? What happened to him? I mean,
I
I
was
don't
just
think
about to mention him.
I know we're thinking the
How
same here
crazy,
today. It was
how
crazy what
crazy is
he had
that?
to go through. I know, it's
Exactly. How
nuts.
crazy is that? Like, how can you, like, you like your family, your friends, they all know you got signed to the UFC, just to find out later on in that same year you get spat back out. That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's freaking crazy. Like, obviously, like us, we like to fight. Obviously, we like to fight, and we obviously don't like to avoid fights. Do you get what I'm saying? Because obviously,
Hmm.
if we think that people are thinking that we're avoiding fights, we obviously thinking that they think that we're scared, when that's not the actual case. Do you get what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
the route that Sean O'Malley's going, I can't knock him for it, because it's a very smart route. He knows what he's doing. He's making his money, and when the time is right, when he gets paid the right amount of money to fight these top 10 guys, top 5 guys, it's working for him. Do you know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
can't say
no,
nothing bad
I know
about that.
exactly what you're saying. We could probably do a whole interview just talking about the business side of fighting, because
I know, yeah,
there's a lot
I
there's a
know.
lot of different ways you can go about it. And you know, O'Malley, I bring him up because I think he's done a very good job of it. I mean, he's look how popular he is. He even brought it up himself. There's a reason he was on the pay-per-view last week and not Dominic Cruz. So just comes to it's
Exactly,
marketability
exactly,
too. So
exactly.
there you go.
You got to be smart. You got to be smart, because if you're not, and you just taking hard fights with not a good with a paycheck that doesn't suit the type of the fight that you're having, then you'll be getting cut before you know it. Do you get what I'm saying? So you just got to
Big time.
try, just especially for young fighters, just got to try and be methodical and be smart on the business side of things when it comes to um, the fights you're taking and how much you're getting paid for these fights that you're taking.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Dom, we could go on forever about this. Really appreciate the
Hmm.
time. Again, congrats on the quick win. Anyone you got to thank, any sponsors, any social media, I'll give you the last word. And hopefully the next time we do this, it's a UFC interview. But just saying, just throwing that out in the universe.
Got you. Yeah, I'd just like to thank my sponsors that has helped me out throughout my last camp. Um, Yogo Group. I'd like to give a shout to Blue Rock Watches. Another sponsor of mine called Ear Sauce. Another sponsor of mine called JK Shah Accountants. Shout out to all of those guys, because they helped me out a lot during my last camp. Also my team, GB Top Team, my coaches, all my coaches that I've mentioned not too long ago. Yeah, and let me just plug in my social media. So my Instagram is at Real D Wooding, Twitter at Real D Wooding, my Facebook athletes page Dominique Wooding, and my Twitter page, no, my YouTube page Black Panther Wooding.